G'day guys, my name is CJ. This is the RingConn Smart Ring, and this could save your life. Alright, so this smart ring might not be a lifesaver, but it's a pretty cool product in the health tracking space. Why? Well, for starters, it's the first health and activity tracking ring that might have as big of an impact as the Oura Ring when that first blew up. Plus, it's got a killer value proposition. Now firstly, I want to preface this video by stating that RingConn did send me a black ring to review for free. However, full disclosure, I actually purchased this gold version myself with my own money because I was already interested in this product well before they made contact. I made this purchase during their Indiegogo campaign at a slight discount, and I can confirm that I've been using it consistently for the last few months. Additionally, RingConn is still sending out new batches to customers as we speak, which isn't always the case with crowdfunded projects, so that's a major green flag already. As I've put my own money into this, I hope that it comes across that these are my honest opinions. Nowadays, for a health tracker to even be considered good, it needs to include several prerequisite features. These include things like heart rate tracking, stress monitoring, oxygen saturations, activity, and sleep tracking at a bare minimum. If you're lucky, it might also have a thermometer and an inbuilt ECG feature, EKG for those North American players. In 2023, many wearables are capable of tracking health data, but there are some caveats that often deter users. First of all, some products require a subscription to access all the features. This is the case with Fitbit and the Oura Ring, for example. And then secondly, many wearables have ergonomic and user experience issues. They either don't last particularly long or they aren't comfortable for everyday use. Now, I've been looking for a smart wearable that can track my sleep because I suspect I snore at night, and that can in turn affect my sleep quality, which then affects my energy levels and performance the following day. Now, I've tried using smartwatches like an Apple Watch at night to track sleep, but in my experience, they aren't that comfortable to wear in bed. Plus, I need to charge it pretty much every night, meaning there's a far higher chance I'm going to forget to put it on before bed. So for me, a ring that sits quietly on my finger where I don't need to worry about charging every day is perfect for this purpose. And RingConn ticks all of these boxes. Then, as an even bigger plus, all features work straight out of the box with no subscription required. So that's 3 major advantages for me, and it was a no-brainer to order one. So let's talk about the actual sizing and delivery. Since everyone's fingers are unique, sizing a ring requires a more personalized approach. So after you place your order, RingConn will send you a sizing kit with 9 different sizes, and you can test each size on all your fingers to find what works best. Now, what's great about these testers is that they are true to the final product shape and size. Other sizing kits often just give you like a little basic zip tie thing that just estimates how thick your finger is, and it doesn't actually reflect the band's true thickness, meaning when the product actually arrives, it'll fit differently than what you would expect. Now, RingConn have recommended to use it primarily on the index finger, but honestly, it works with your middle and ring finger as well. Now, I also recommend wearing the testers for a couple of days to really get a feel for it before locking it in. Then once you've found what works for you, it's as simple as going online, locking the size, and then receive the perfect fit. Then when it arrives, it comes in a relatively simple packaging. Inside the box, you'll find the ring, some documentation, and the charging case, and that's pretty much it. Externally, the ring is made of a solid titanium, but it is surprisingly light. 4 grams light, actually. Now, I've been predominantly using the gold version, and it has to be said that the shade of gold is a little darker and more yellow than I was expecting. Regardless though, I've really enjoyed how it looks, and I think it's worked quite well with pretty much all of the outfits that I've worn so far. Now, internally, it has all the sensors that we spoke about and is made of a plastic material that sits on the skin. Now, when you put the ring on, the first impression that I had was that it's actually a bit thicker than expected. This makes it more noticeable with daily wear in the sense that it doesn't blend in quite like a traditional ring like my wedding band does. Over the last few months of use, I've often noticed the ring more often than my wedding band because I just hear a prominent tap or a bit of a scratching noise when doing certain things like, grabbing a door handle to open a door, typing on a keyboard, or even just holding a cup to drink. Throughout the day, just by the sounds it makes, inadvertently reminds you that you're wearing it. On top of that, because it's a bit thicker, it does dig into my hands when gripping things tightly, like a power drill or even playing sport like tennis. It's not painful, but you do notice it. Now, speaking of noticing things, I've also noticed that you really do need to let your finger breathe every now and then when using this ring. The plastic material that sits on the inside often makes it hard for your skin to breathe, and if you use a lot of lotions or creams, or you wash your hands a lot throughout the day, it's easy for moisture to get trapped in between your finger and the ring. So if you're not careful and wear it all the time with no breaks, you'll often see skin breaking down, and that can cause all sorts of medical issues like eczema, dermatitis, or even ulcers from all that trapped moisture. To avoid this, I often pop it in the charging case when I'm taking a shower, or at least take it off. That way my finger can breathe and the ring gets a little top up too, which is something I'll touch on in just a little bit. Plus, RingConn advised not to use it in hot or steamy environments because its IP68 rating doesn't actually cover those situations. Now, admittedly, I have used it a few times in the shower, and honestly, it's held up pretty well. But I can't comment on how long it'll last if you do this on the daily though, so I don't recommend this. Since this smart ring is thicker and tends to come into contact with things throughout the day, it's an inevitability that the ring is going to experience wear and tear. That being said, after using this gold version in a whole variety of activities such as building a garden shed over the last couple of months, it appears to have held up quite well. Now, whilst you might notice some scratches when you look a little bit closer, honestly, I don't think they're particularly perceptible. In fact, from a distance and even just at arm's length, you'll be hard pressed to see any real damage. That being said, I've been a member of the official RingConn Facebook group for a little while now since it launched, and it seems that people who purchased the black ring aren't having the same luck. There have been many people that have complained that scratches appear even after just a single day of use. Now, whilst I can't comment on these cases, based on my own experience of not using it too much, it does seem to pick up blemishes a little easier compared to the gold version. However, as with most rings and accessories like that, things will get scuffed with regular wear, and I think that just adds character to the ring with a unique patina. This is true for my own wedding band, which used to have a very chrome-like finish, but now looks more like a matte brushed finish instead. So therefore, if you expect scratches in your smart ring as part of just daily life right from the start, there'll be no surprises. Now let's talk about power. The RingConn is designed to last between 5 to 7 days, and that really depends on how much activity you use it with. As an example, if you're someone who's always on the move and regularly hits the gym, then you probably will see closer to 4 to 5 days of battery life. But for those who are, like me, a little less active and sedentary, you can expect to get anywhere from 6 to 7 days out of a single charge. And if you do need to charge it up, the included case can take you from 0 to 100 in about 90 minutes, which is pretty fast. I mean, I have found that it takes just a slightly longer than that, but it's still pretty good. And speaking of the charging case, it's a well-built piece of kit. It's made from a sleek and stylish matte black aluminium housing that looks and feels like a high-end jewelry box. And it's not flimsy either. It snaps closed with confidence and it feels really solid in the hand. On the back of the case, you've got a USB-C port to charge the internal battery, which has a capacity of about 500 milliamps, and this is enough to fully charge the RingConn up to 18 times before you need to recharge the case. Based on my calculations and RingConn's, that's up to 3 months between charges, which is amazing and solves one of my biggest issues with smart wearables. On top of that, each charging case is customized to each specific ring size, so your RingConn always fits snugly and securely inside. It uses magnets to hold it in place, which means you can safely charge it whilst on the go without worrying about it falling out or getting lost. And then overall, the battery life and charging experience of the RingConn is top-notch and makes it an excellent choice for those who want a pretty hassle-free wearable experience. Now let's dive into the important bits, which is the app and its tracking features. Now, whilst it won't win any awards for innovation, it does the job. The interface is clean and straightforward, and it makes it relatively easy to navigate and find the most important metrics you want. The activity circles are color-coded, and it provides a quick visual representation of your health tracking progress, like any good health app does. Now, if you're someone who likes to dig deeper into the data, get into the nitty-gritty, the app does provide a robust amount of information that you can access. The app's main dashboard features the most essential data points, which include sleep, stress levels, and of course, activity. Now, to access the data though, the Ring has to be connected to a RingConn account, which is kind of disappointing, and it can only be paired with one phone at a time. And while switching between phones is possible, it's not always the most seamless experience. But let's first talk about connecting it in the first place. So like any good wearable, setup is really simple. You simply place it in the charging case to enter pairing mode for the first time and follow the prompts in the app to get it set up quickly. Now, when it comes to tracking, the main benefit here is that it's unobtrusive. It's easy to get used to wearing it all day, and the sensor's never really distracted throughout the whole time I used it. Now, you might notice the occasional flash of green or red light that bleeds from the LEDs, and it does stand out a little bit in really dark situations, but for me, honestly, it hasn't really been disruptive at all. In fact, I find it kind of reassuring to know that it's actually working and doing something. Now, unlike other wearables, the RingConn doesn't have any haptic motors or notification systems, so it doesn't constantly demand your attention. Now, this allows you to focus on your daily activities without any interruptions, and is another major reason I love this form factor. It's so unobtrusive that the Ring can store up to 5 to 7 days of data in the unlikely event that you forget to sync it across. That being said though, I do highly recommend syncing a little bit more regularly though, like every 2 to 3 days, not only to make sure you're keeping an eye on your progress, because that's why else did you get a ring like this, but also for the sake of ensuring your data is actually saved. Now recently there was a period where I didn't load up the app for about 5 days because I was busy with life just in general, and when I finally remembered to look at the data, the Ring struggled to sync the saved data across quickly. Now you could tell that there was still stuff stored in there because you could see the raw step data, heart rate data, etc. But it wouldn't process it to show your trends or progress on the main page. Now I tried logging out, I tried repairing the Ring, and I even restarting it, but didn't work. It turned out all it needed was a better part of a day to just slowly sync everything across. And ultimately, it all did sync over, but it was so concerning at the time that I actually sent feedback in the app about this problem before then checking it hours later and finding that it's already fixed itself. Because I mean, after all, what use is a smart ring that can last up for a week if it can't store that same amount of data in that whole time? Now, when it comes to software support, the RingConn has had a few hiccups being a relatively young product, but the team has been pretty quick to address issues. So initially, step tracking was being overestimated by quite a significant margin compared to other smart devices like the Apple or Galaxy Watch, but RingConn have been continually improving their algorithms and firmware, which is a great sign, and I've actually received a couple of firmware updates already. Also positively, they also keep adding features such as Apple Health support and integration, and skin temperature monitoring, which is currently in beta, but it seems that they are continually developing their app, and it's conceivable that things can get better. I mean, I hate recommending products with the promise of software upgrades, but ultimately it's really great to see a new player in the field taking their software support really seriously, all whilst not charging a subscription fee, which is amazing. But while it's important to have a general idea of how much physical activity you're getting each day, it's also important to remember that these metrics are more of a guideline and not the be-all and end-all for your health. Just because you're now tracking things like your heart rate and sleep doesn't mean you're automatically going to be healthier. Find what information is important to you and see if this RingConn smart ring can be used to leverage this to help you live a more healthy life. So one of the most important features of the RingConn smart ring for me is its sleep tracking. It utilizes data from sensors like the accelerometer, oxygen sats monitor, heart rate monitor, and even the thermometer, and feeds it into an algorithm that will help visualize your sleep patterns. The app displays the different phases of your sleep and the duration of each phase, along with the times you were in them. However, when I compared this data to an Apple Watch, which gets pretty similar data worn on the same arm, the algorithms interpret data a little differently. The curves look roughly similar, but the actual figures and what their interpretations is wildly different. Maybe it was because your fingers can move independently whilst you sleep. Nonetheless, it's crucial to check whether the oxygen saturation levels correlate with periods of disturbed sleep throughout all your sleep phases. For this, I'd recommend combining the data you get from this ring with an app like Sleep Cycle that also records when you snore and logs the time. Then you can cross-reference the data from these two apps and help determine if the oxygen saturation levels dropped during disturbed sleep. For me, the data was patchy, though my oxygen levels rarely dropped below 93 to 94%, which is typically the levels in which your body starts to actively trigger reflexes to increase your oxygen saturation. It's kind of like what happens in those with obstructive sleep apnea, where they wake up suddenly choking during sleep. That's a very primitive reflex your brain triggers so you breathe again and get more oxygen into your bloodstream, but obviously breaking the sleep in the process. Now, it's important to keep in mind that whilst the RingConn and other wearable trackers can provide insight into things like sleep, they can't compare to a formal sleep study, which is the gold standard for investigating sleep disturbances. But let's be real, that whole setup is expensive, bulky, and uncomfortable, plus you need a qualified sleep physician to actually interpret the results. And that's where the value of a product like this comes into play. For example, on days when you wake up feeling unrefreshed, you at least have this device that can see what your heart rate and oxygen saturation levels were doing and take note of it. And then if this happens more often or patterns start to emerge, then you can take steps around your lifestyle to try to improve things, whether it's going to bed earlier, not eating, or drinking too close to bedtimes, or not drinking as much alcohol. And then ultimately, if things really did look like they were changing, you could use this to inform whether or not you need to seek out a more formal sleep study. But let me set one thing clear though. If you're actually concerned about your sleep and overall health, it's still best to consult with your doctor. I would never rely on a device like this to diagnose problems, and I wouldn't recommend you do that either. When it comes to activity tracking, the Ring tracks your steps, it estimates distance and variability of your heart rate. And whilst doing so, all of this info is processed by RingConn's algorithm, and it helps predict intensity, how long you exercised, and how many calories you burned. It also gives you some arbitrary score to rate how much physical activity you've done. And let me tell you, there's nothing quite like a half-filled activity bar to make you feel bad about living a sedentary life. But in any case, if you're someone that already owns a smartwatch or Fitbit, then you'll find the RingConn's activity track either useful or useless. If seeing this data motivates you, then you could use it to do the same. But if you basically glance over activity data normally, then you'll probably do the same here as well. But when it comes to activity tracking, I was curious to see how accurate the RingConn could be. So I compared its step count to my Apple Watch on a lazy day, don't judge, and let me tell you, the results are pretty interesting. It seems that the RingConn severely underestimated how many steps I took, and this remained pretty consistent all throughout, even if I wore the Apple Watch on the same wrist. Right. Future me here, I just wanted to give you an update that since recording this video, the Ring has actually received quite a number of firmware updates that actually significantly improved how consistent and how accurate the step counting was. Now, compared to what it was before, the discrepancy between the Apple Watch and the RingConn is far lower now, and there's probably a difference of maybe 80 to 100 steps between the two devices, sometimes more, sometimes less, but consistency-wise, far better than it used to be when it first was released. So that's a really great sign. Just want to give you that update. Let's get back to the video. But to be fair, accuracy can be a challenge with activity tracking on body parts that are further away from the torso, as there are so many more variables at play. Each device needs to be able to differentiate between simple movements like waving your hand versus doing daily tasks like washing dishes, making tea, or writing or typing. And the further away you get, the more variables come into play. So when it comes to activity tracking on a finger, it's not just about the big arm movements, but also about those small, fine motor actions that only fingers can do. So this means that RingConn's algorithm has to distinguish between a wide range of movements, and this, I imagine, is no easy task. If you're a serious athlete and need accurate metrics, then you're probably better off looking at a Fitbit or a Garmin. But if you're looking for a ballpark impression of how active you've been and you need a bit of motivation to exercise more, then the RingConn will do a job here as well. And that's pretty much it for the RingConn so far. It's been an absolute pleasure to use it day to day, and I believe it's still one of the most convenient and elegant solutions for sleep and activity tracking. But the biggest kicker for me here is that there are no hidden subscription fees or nerfed hidden features behind a paywall. All features are ready to go and available right out of the box, and that's a massive win in my books. I do wish it was slightly slimmer from an ergonomic perspective, but I guess that's what happens with the first generation of products. Now, the RingConn Smart Ring starts at $279 US, which already undercuts the Aura Ring, which costs $299 to start off with, and this doesn't even factor in the attached subscription fees to be fully featured either. So for me, the RingConn definitely provides a far better value proposition as long as you go into this experience understanding that it should primarily be used as a guide to inform better lifestyle choices. It's more of a product aimed for the everyday person who's curious about their own physical health and want an unobtrusive, elegant, wearable solution that doesn't break the bank. And in this context, you can't really go wrong with the Smart Ring by RingConn. Links will be in the description below if you want to check things out. But anyway, what do you guys think of this Smart Ring by RingConn? Do you think it's a product worth investing in? Do you even think smart rings are a good idea? I'm curious to hear from you in the comments section below. In any case, thanks for watching. Give us a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe for more, and ding the bell icon so you don't miss out. Stay safe out there, and I'll catch you in the next video. Cheers.